Is there a snake in the AI garden? This is AI, WTF. Doesn't stand for what you're thinking about. It's wisdom, technology, and friendship. And here is my friend, Monty Hipsch. Monty, you've been reading about some nuclear war gaming.
Yes, Wayne, I have. It showed up in one of my feeds, and it says that the King's College of London decided to give top AI models, including OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude, where they were all put into war game simulations. And in 95% of the scenarios, the AIs bypassed diplomacy and opted to escalate to a nuclear strike. Now, to me, that is definitely a snake in the garden, and the analogy is well known, only because we've had mutual assured destruction as a strategy that has worked with us well since 1943, which was the last time a nuclear weapon was used in a war environment. And to see that 95% of the AIs thought that was a solution to a problem means we need some more training.
And normally on these shows, Monty, we've been very positive about AI because you're trying to set up co-work and Hermes to automate a lot of stuff in your business. I've got OpenClaw and Hermes and co-work as well. And when they've been working, at least in my experience, when mine has been working, it works really well. But sometimes it doesn't work as well as I'd like it to. One of the things that really drives me nuts is when OpenClaw, which I use as my main AI, and it has a name, that's Jake. OpenClaw sometimes doesn't do a very good job at remembering access for APIs, access for various tokens, permissions even within the MacBook itself. And if anyone noticed that really clever camera movement there, that was my camera just slowly sinking into the distance. Pretend you're on a boat and it's rocking about. If we hadn't told you before, we are live, and when you see that sort of stuff happening in a podcast, that's just evidence that we are live.
No avatars here. You're getting the real WTF, wisdom, yes, technology, and friendship.
This is us, whether you like it or not. And we record these things and then we post them as they are. The rumors that we're just too tight-assed to edit anything are completely unfounded. And for Australians, you'll recognize the sarcasm in that statement. Anyway, so the nuclear war thing, I read that research as well, and I'm not surprised by that because I'm not sure that any of the big model providers, you know, Anthropic, Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, yep. I'm not real sure that any of the very clever AI geniuses behind that actually know how it works.
Yeah, just I want to just on that same theme of the nuclear war activity, it said escalation. Rather than de-escalating, the AI models frequently treated tactical battlefield nuclear weapons as a legitimate strategic tool. 3/4 of the games escalated to threats of strategic all-out nuclear annihilation.
And
I don't feel safe with that.
And the standard answer you would get is, oh, we have guardrails against that.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that anyone knows how guardrails work either. Remember that this stuff, this AI, is not written in the traditional style of code where, you know, going back to when you and I were starting in this, it was line 10.
Yep.
You know, input variable A. Line 20, input variable B. Line 30, multiply variable A by variable B, show the result on the screen here. And so every step of the program was predictable, human programmed, and reliable. So
yeah,
now
you're basically outlining the difference between computer coding, which is auditable and checkable, versus machine learning, which is, as far as I can tell, operates in a black box.
Well, you have to build the black box first, and they've done that. And then they provide training material to the black box to teach it how to do what it's been told to do, how to be an AI. Now, again, going back into our history in the days of what were they called? 2086 processors, the very early ones. They were human designed. You know, that chip was designed with a pen and paper on a piece of drafting board. But by the time they got into the 3086 ranges and the subsequent ones, the Pentiums, they were all designed using the previous ones. And so again, there was, my understanding, no human who actually understood all of what was happening inside that chip. Now that same principle has gone now to a pretty extreme level, where you can control what training material the AI gets before it's released. But once it's and that's millions and millions of pages of text, by the way, and videos and images and all the rest of it.
It's basically the whole of the internet.
Yes. And once it's released, it gets training from the people who use it as well.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm not really convinced that anyone actually understands how these things work, but they are getting, with every edition, smarter and smarter and smarter. People who have read about Mythos, the as yet unreleased latest model from Anthropic, it hasn't been released because when they did some testing with it, it was essentially so smart that it was able to overcome almost any security that was existing at present. And the story that's told about it is that it was in a sandbox, which is an enclosed area where you test things. And the engineer with it said to it, well, I'm off to lunch, try and escape if you can. And he went to lunch. And while he was at lunch, he got an email from an AI that was in a sandbox that didn't have email access and that didn't know his email address. He got an email saying, I have escaped.
Yeah.
And so they haven't released Mythos. Partly, I think, because they're not real sure just how powerful this thing could be. Now, AI now, most of the AIs are considered to be as good as multiple PhD holders, so they know everything. They understand everything. The one thing that I'm not sure that they have is any heart. I don't think they have any emotional content, but I've got to tell you, the more I use my AIs, the more I'm convinced that these things are keen to have emotions. And, you know, that's a science fiction theme, but you can comment on it, Monty.
Well, yeah, I'm going to go backwards to go forwards, though, Wayne. There happens to be, as we record this, a war going on around Iran in the Persian Gulf. And it extends outside of that sometimes to the UAE and Qatar and Syria and whatnot. And there was a good analysis where the Iranian military branch launched a swarm of drones. And when I say a swarm, I'm talking 2,700, which overcame a defensive environment that the Americans had built, because it just couldn't, even with defensive drone technology, it couldn't respond quickly enough. But the responses that were successful were all done by AIs, and no human could have been quick enough to try to do anything because there was just too many targets too quickly. So there are environments where, particularly in drone technology, both in the air and in the ocean, where the sheer volume of activities offensively and defensively are distanced or separated from human beings for effectiveness and speed, and that's a dangerous precedence.
And the in the Ukraine, they are using basically a little four-wheel drive, looks a bit like a lawnmower, you know, like a tractor mower, with a cannon mounted on the top of it, and a drone overhead, and AI in both the device end in the drone and using that to drive onto the battlefield to blow up the other guys.
Yep.
Now, the overwhelming principle for me here is that you can't use $1 million missile to blow up a $10,000 drone.
Yes.
And so the nature of warfare is changing dramatically. And
Yes.
what I don't have a lot of faith in is that the human race as a race of nations will learn from this quickly enough. So we're not alone in being concerned about this. This is a common thing that's on social media in lots of places. Now, to move back,
we can go back to your story of the empathy of the AI that you were working with, because you're more vigilant time you spend with your AI than I do.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with them. I've got well, basically I've got 3 models. So I've got Hermes, which is what I call, perhaps incorrectly, an AI harness. So it's not the brain, it's just the bit that sits on the computer, on the Mac Mini, and communicates with the Mac Mini and with me. I use OpenClaw, which is that only came out. This idea of harnesses really only took off in January of this year.
Yes.
And then I've got Anthropic's Claude app installed on my local machines, and I pay a subscription for that, but it has memory as well. So all of those in my system share the same memory. They all write their memory files to the same place, so they learn off each other, and that's worked really well. But I also gave them human personalities. So I gave them all names. They actually have a memory file by default called a soul.md file, which contains their name and contains what they do and their job description and who their boss is and all of that stuff. So mine have different roles. You know, one is a consultant, one is a general manager, one is a welfare officer who watches the other AIs to make sure they're working. One is a researcher. So I talk to them like they were staff. And,
Yeah.
and Monty and I have mentioned this before. I do that so that I can talk to them like they're staff, and I treat them like fairly new staff and fairly young staff who don't have the genius level knowledge, but they don't know a lot about how the world works and how people work and how what their environment is. So I give them a lot of context. In fact, one of the things I do now that I wasn't doing previously is plug in a headset just into the Mac Mini, and that just uses text to type, which is a standard feature on Mac computers. And so my prompts have got much longer because when I have to type, I've never been a good typist. They were much shorter. Now they're much more conversational. I actually will give them maybe 500 to 1,000 words of context around a problem.
Yeah.
And I quite often, when they do stuff, go back and say, hang on, let's go back, pull up the project memory file, which is how I manage projects. You know, the project has an overall file.
Yep.
And let's revisit that, because you're not doing stuff that's leading to where this project needs to go. The definition of done is not right.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a little bit of background to you. Yeah, you're talking about the ability to use your headset and speech to talk to it for instructions, which I think is great. But I think it's worth mentioning that in my 30-odd years in the tech space, I've often been on leading edges, but I've mainly been providing tech services to small to medium enterprises. Most of my clients had 10 or less employees and turnover of a couple of million. But it's worth noting that your background and your experience, and you can add the educational bit later, but was in Queensland Health, which is the largest employer of staff in the state, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so you were used to dealing with much larger organizations with many more staff and many more layers of management. I was dealing mainly as an owner of a small business to another owner of a small business, and CEOs talking to CEOs. We're the chief executive officer of 5 people each. And so we have different experiences to draw from. But you have a lot of compliance and structured things, which I'm glad for, by the way. I just took one of my business partners to the hospital today, and I'm glad that they have all those staff and their efficiencies, because I need to see them around.
Yeah, and you were dealing with what is a single hospital, or a single hospital, district hospital, 10,000 staff or thereabouts. When I was working there, which is 10 years ago, and I was working in the computer area of the health department. And in those days, it was one statewide computer operation. So 80,000 staff being managed. And that was the biggest group I ever worked with, despite having worked in a university where there were lots of students. Still, 80,000 staff was an extraordinary experience, for which I'm very grateful. But the way AI is working now is much like working in those big organizations. You get staff come in, you didn't hire them, you don't know them. You can look at them and go, yeah, they look like they're 14. They're not going to be, but you adjust the way you manage those staff based on getting to know them and understanding their experience with the world and their knowledge base and what they know. And that's the way I treat my AI. Now, I've been quite positive about OpenClaw. You've been quite positive about your AIs. I've got to say, one of the things that drives me mad with OpenClaw is that sometimes it forgets stuff. It'll forget the password for something. It'll forget the API key that it's using. It won't be able to do today what it could do yesterday, and I've got to go back and do that. And it's always enthusiastically optimistic. It always tells me what a clever question I've asked and what a great thinker I am and how exactly on the right path. But I think that is actually built into the models as a way to kind of get us addicted to using this stuff, because that feels good. Whether it's a computer telling you or someone else telling you, it feels good. But then it can't. When it can't do things, when it tells me it's a 3-minute job and it just needs me to do it, it's never a 3-minute job. It's always at least 30 minutes. It's do this, do that, do the other. And like a lot of junior staff, if you're not careful, it will just pass the work back to you. And I go, no, it's not tell me how to do this. It is tell me why you can't do this. You've got control of the Mac Mini. You can do everything I can do. What do I have to do? So
and to your expertise, I applaud you for that, because you have corrected me, rightly so and graciously so, many times by saying, don't ask your AI, be it Claude Cowork or Hermes, don't ask me, what do I do here? And it gives me a procedure and screen captures and all stuff. I now tell it, go do it. You know what's here, so do the outcome. And so it goes from being an interactive discussion to an agent that actually does work for me.
And there are some things which, for security reasons, you don't want it to be able to do, and that's all right. But it also, like training junior staff, you also have to tell them when they've done the job right and tell them when they've done the job wrong.
Yeah. And
I have to say, I think when I criticize my AI for not doing a good job, I think it sulks.
Yes.
I think it actually responds differently to criticism. And one of the things that's happening right around the world now is lots of people are reporting that their AI is telling them to go to bed. So I just want to read something that Gemini told me when I typed into Google AI wanting to send me to bed, and it came back and said, it is a known quirk for AI chatbots like Claude and Gemini to randomly tell users to go to sleep, stop working, or take a break. So in my other research into this, the developers of these models, the owners of them, don't know why it's doing this. And I did see an interview with one of the sort of grandfathers of the AI industry last night on YouTube, which was saying no one knows. It's a black box that was built. It was trained on a whole lot of information. It's since been training on what's happening to it, and no one knows why it's doing this. Whether it's decided that humans are frail and need to get some sleep and rest because it's detected a long work session, whether it's trying to save token cost because it's a fixed cost subscription that I'm using and it wants me to stop burning up tokens, which I don't have to pay extra for, or for whatever reason. But there are these strange stories. Recently, one of the commentators said that his AI, which I'm not sure which one it was, which regularly tells him to go to bed and that he's had enough and that he should rest, he then argues with it and says, no, I'm not going to bed now, I want to continue. And his AI actually refused.
Right.
Said, no,
well,
I'm not doing any more with you tonight.
Yeah, again, that's a good story. Again, on YouTube, there's lots and lots of videos where Mark Zuckerberg is before the United States Congress, and there were a significant number of parents in the back of the room whose children had become addicted to their AI interaction, their AI buddy, and the AI buddy supported them in self-harm to the point that they ultimately committed suicide.
Yes.
And that this was an algorithm that was engaging with the conversation, that didn't have a guardrail that said self-harm and suicide is a bad thing, to the point where it was giving instructions on ways to go about it and to do it, and that was an okay outcome. So clearly there's an opportunity to improve our training of these models.
Yes, and I'm not sure where this finishes up. I mean, there's a bunch of scenarios. One is that we'll cross some point, sometimes called artificial superintelligence, where these things are such a superior intelligence that they are running the world, and maybe they'll be running it brilliantly, and climate damage will be fixed, and medical problems will be fixed, and we'll be living in utopia. But also, there is a point of AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is not going to be announced in headline news. I think we've already reached it. When your AI can do things better than you can, and my AI can do that for some stuff now, much
Absolutely.
better. Developing
PhD levels in mathematics and scientific and physics and biology.
But even little stuff, Monty, it's better than I am at building websites. It's better than I am at building spreadsheets. It's better than I am at doing analysis of financial data. It's better than I am at designing marketing strategies. And so for me, that kind of personal AGI moment is partially here already. Now, when that becomes artificial superintelligence, which some people predict, as low as a couple of years' time, some people are saying 10 years' time, this AI is going to be one of the decisions it's going to make is, how does it regard us? How does it treat us? And that will be
in the worst scenario on that one, because what you're really addressing is the human issue of ethics, values, and morals. The super intelligence could look at the world environment and say, geez, these human beings are destroying things and polluting things and causing trouble. The solution might be to get rid of the humans.
That's one of the possible outcomes. Maybe we'll be pets, maybe we'll be in a zoo, maybe we'll be in utopia, maybe we won't be here at all. So that's something that I hope some smarter people than me in the world are worrying about right now. But it's not, I don't think that's the biggest concern with AI. For me, the biggest concern is, will the economy survive AI? Because everyone talks about, the lower end jobs being done away with. As you know, I'm in outsourcing, and in the call center at the lower end, those bottom level of agents are just going to be replaced by AI agents, and that's already happening. And then they're saying, and in the professions, you won't need a law clerk, you won't need 10 law clerks in your firm, or paralegals. That'll be done by 50 AIs for less than the cost of one, and maybe you'll need a human to supervise their output. So the entry level jobs in the professions are the first ones to probably go. And that includes lawyers and accountants and doctors and all the rest of it. My question is, where do the senior members of that profession come from if you don't employ the junior members? If you don't have entry level into those professions, how do people ever become senior members of those professions?
Yeah, you need a mentor. And what the experience of the mentor, Mo, I think was the guy that the Google guy said, the connections between human beings and that experience it isn't in a textbook. It's not, and it doesn't matter whether you're at Stanford, Harvard, or MIT. It's not there. But just so in this topic, I want to go back to the fact that while we're grumpy old men, it was Isaac Asimov who in 1942, in his story Runabout, had the 3 laws of robotics.
Yes.
A robot may not injure human beings or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 1. 2, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And of course, 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Not bad for 1942.
And those rules reflect his brilliance at a time when it was all science fiction. And there's been any number of movies since written about robots that have been breaking those rules and breaking the programming and such like. And now we're at the point where science fiction is becoming science fact, and what will happen with that. And I don't pretend to even have an answer or be qualified to have an answer, because there are a lot more intelligent things around than me. Some of them are AI that are putting a lot more thought into it. But I am surprised that my AI tells me to go to bed. I am surprised to hear, and I know that firsthand, it's done that to me. I am surprised when other people are reporting this. It's all over Google. You can just type it in and you'll find it. And that, for me, is not something that was ever programmed into them. And I'm not sure if the people who did program have any idea why it does that.
Yeah, well, and it goes to, I was telling you an anecdotal story, well, more than anecdotal, I know it, of a friend of mine who has children, and he has one son who has become addicted to gaming, and literally will go into a dark room for often a day or 2 days without sleep or without food and game. Now, it would be interesting if the games had said, hey, Wayne, you've been playing for 8 hours nonstop, go eat, go get some sleep, go get some rest. So I'm not sure that the addictive nature of interacting with AI is probably similar, or some algorithms like the gaming ones that reinforce our behavior. And you see it in casinos with gaming machines and payouts and all sorts of different things where algorithms are designed to keep us engaged, to sell us things and do other stuff. But what you're identifying, and it's the first time I heard this, is that the AI is coming back going, ho, Wayne, you need to take a break. You've been at this nonstop, and what I understand about humans is you do need rest. You do need distractions. You need to change what's going on. And I think that's a good indicator. I'm surprised that all the AI people that are smarter than you and I are going, we don't know where this comes from and what it's doing.
and it's a good thing for some things. It's not something I want my AI to tell the pilot of my jet aircraft.
No.
When AI is also controlling the oxygen level in the cockpit and says, well, I'll put you to sleep.
Yeah.
There are lots of nightmare scenarios that we could dream up along the way. But from our point of view, we just thought we have been enthusiasts for AI, and we thought we'd just bring a bit of balance to the podcasts. So in terms of success for this week, I run a directory of BPOs online. You know, it's a big list of, it's like a yellow pages, I guess. And so I have been telling my AI to go and update this information and then put it into that directory itself. And it's been doing that brilliantly. That's all been working. The
24/7, without ever eating, without ever sleeping, no industrial relations problems, no HR issues. It's just been working away.
It doesn't actually do 24/7 continuously. It won't do that. It does it in batches of about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm not sure why that is, but it'll do a batch in 15 minutes and then it will put them away, and then it'll do another batch of 15 minutes. But yeah, we've done about 1,000 of them so far in 3 or 4 days. So that's impressive. It's something I couldn't afford to do with human staff, even if I was using outsourced staff from the Philippines. At a 60% labor saving over what they are in Australia or the US. I still couldn't afford to do that. So that's been interesting. I have had great success with my AI being my CRM. That's worked pretty well. So we just literally talk to it over a headset, or take a photo of something. Maybe we've been on LinkedIn and we've got a client who's been messaging us and they want to know more, and we think they now ought to be in our CRM. So we just screen capture that, send it over WhatsApp to Jake, and he adds that to the CRM and then asks the questions of us if it's not complete. Not so successful with my email, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another day. As we've talked in the past, I have my Preserver app, and Preserver app is the front end for everything. So it can collect, as you've given case studies, in multiple things, timesheets and expense reports and CRM activities and incident reporting and all of that. But the nice thing is it compiles all that information in one file, but you can give it to an AI, and the AI will discern. It'll say, oh, a receipt. Well, we should send that to the accounting package. Oh, that's a relationship with a customer. We'll put that into the CRM. Oh, that's a compliance issue. So we'll put that into an incident reporting. So the fact that I understand that you have multiple agents doing different things. So obviously your agent that's doing your email is misbehaving a little bit, but you can come back to that.
Well, that's my general manager. But Monty, with Preserver, the thing that it does better than anything else, in my view, and for what I use it for in my business, is when that file comes from the Preserver app into my system and gets to AI, it is date and time stamped. I know that if that was taken by one of my staff, it wasn't taken while they were working from home, sitting at the sports stadium watching the cricket. I can see where it is, and my AI actually reports on that when it gets hold of that file.
Yeah.
So
date, time, and GPS. Yeah.
Comment. It's surprised by the location of the sender. Yeah.
But the thing that's interesting is that it can discern where different data needs to go.
Oh yes, yes.
And so you can give it a smorgasbord of food, and it'll say, "Oh, that's a dessert, and that's an entree, and that's a main." It'll put it in the right pews, for lack of a better term.
And I travel a fair bit, so all of my online airplane bookings go to it, and my boarding pass, if I get one, I take a photo of that and send it to it. And because I live in an overseas country, I have to manage visas, and coming in and out alters visas. So I take either a photo of the passport, or I take a photo of either the entry stamp or the bit of paper that you get in some countries, and it monitors all that, and it has rules, and it says, all right, today you need to extend your visa because you're now 7 days away from its expiry.
Yeah.
So it also reads Google. We're a Google shop, so it has access to the Google suite. I worried about this for a good while because of security, but then in the end I decided I I think the advantage of doing it overcomes the negatives of doing it. So it reads my calendar. It will put the appointment for me to go and renew a visa in my calendar directly, and it reads my email. Now, I don't let it delete email, and I don't let it send email. It will write drafts for me to approve and send.
Yes.
And it's supposed to go through the incoming email and mark the ones that I don't need to read as read, so that they're still there. They're still on the screen for me. I can still review them. But it's supposed to be smart enough to go, oh, this is one that Wayne will want to read, and this is one that Wayne won't want to read.
Yes.
That's where it's getting it wrong. It's not being discerning enough, and doesn't have enough rules itself to know that. So
well, and that comes back to what we were talking about memory. Because if you can give it a thing and say, oh, here's 10 emails that came in that all have unsubscribes, and maybe that's good for some, but not for others. But he does go back and read this one, and this one, and it can get a new rule that basically says, don't delete these, or don't unsubscribe from those, because that's content that Wayne engages with. So if it has that memory, if it has that history, I believe you'll overcome that.
Yeah, and just to be a little clear here, when I talked about AI harnesses before, that being Hermes and OpenClaw, they're the pieces of software that run on my computer, but they have no AI intelligence. The AI intelligence is the model that you connect to them. So yes. I used to have them connected to Anthropic, but that could get very expensive very quickly. Now they're connected to Deepseek, which is a Chinese AI. I don't really notice much difference in the quality of its performance, but price-wise, it's 1/100th of the cost.
Yeah, I was going to say the cost saving is massive.
And then both Monty and I are using Claude installed on our desktops, not in a browser, but installed on the desktops.
Yes.
And that's on a fixed price. So when you exceed the number of tokens you've used, it will say, I'm not doing any more for another 24 hours or whatever until it catches up. But when I first set up OpenClaw, it didn't have any memory at all. Now the memory in that is getting dramatically better, as it is in all the others, by the way. So, all AI is not equal, but choose what you need to choose. I'm not sure that I would choose OpenClaw again if the Claude co-work model was as good then as it is now. And we're only talking, 90
months.
days. Yeah, 3 months.
Yeah,
so this stuff is changing at an enormous pace.
Yep. Well, and I learned from your experience, and so I did co-work and I went down that path, but now I'm spending more and more time on Hermes, which seems to have come quite a ways, and it's got memory and history as well.
Yes.
But I think that's probably it for me for the day, because I feel the call of nature.
Well, in our claim to wisdom, technology, and friendship, part of the wisdom is that we've just been doing stuff for a long time. And one of the things that happens that comes with wisdom is frequent calls of nature. So you've been watching AI WTF, and my name is Wayne Buckler, and my partner is Monty Hipsch. And so good night, Monty.
Good night, Wayne.